You are now listening to the Social English Podcast. This is a conversation tips episode to help you get better speaking English.
皆さんこんにちは。毎日少しずつ社交に使える英語の上達を目指すソーシャルイングリッシュポッドキャストへようこそ。今日はぜひもっと自信を持って英会話してみましょう。Are you ready, Percy? Let's go!
Yes, I am. Thank you, Hikari, for that awesome introduction. Welcome, everyone, to the Social English Podcast. Once again, your host here, Percy, spending some time with you. Today, we are going to cover more conversation killers. Ways you don't know you are ruining, messing up conversations you are having with people. Today is going to be top 10 part 2. So I'm going to cover 6 through 10 right after this.
今日のソーシャルイングリッシュのエピソードは中級または上級のスキルレベルで英語を勉強している人々を対象としています。初心者の方はゆっくりとエピソードを聞いてください。頑張れ。
Okay, everybody, welcome back from that brief break. Today, our episode is also another episode for the more advanced English learners. If you are advanced, maybe intermediate, this episode will be very good for you. So we are covering conversations and mistakes people make that kill the conversation. The meaning of kill the conversation means it makes the conversation bad or it ruins the conversation. So, earlier I talked about the first 5 ways to kill a conversation in the last episode. So in this episode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover numbers 6 through 10. And I might even throw in an additional thing not to do while having a conversation. Okay, so let's talk about number 6. Number 6, this is something you do not want to do, is monologues about yourself. You also don't want to do this because you don't want to talk about yourself a lot. Number 7 is going to be negative gossip. We don't want to have negative gossip or bring negativity, into our conversations. Number 8, we don't want to bring up or talk about controversial or taboo subjects. We don't want to talk about things that are taboo or controversial. Number 9, we don't want to just give advice. Tell someone about something that we think is advice if they did not ask. And then number 10, this is very difficult sometimes, but you don't want to have a lot of what is called small talk. We don't want to have a lot of small talk in our conversations. Now, next, I'm going to go break all of these down. I'm going to give you some examples so you can hear exactly what I mean and learn what not to do. And then I will give you a bonus, a number 11, if you will. 11 thing not to do during conversations to kill the conversation. And I'll get back to that right after this.
このショーを気に入っていただけたら5つ星のレビューをぜひお願いします。
Okay, so now, why don't we just go ahead and go into it? Let's talk about these conversation killers, and we'll start with the 6th one. Remember, the 6th one is talking about yourself. You don't want to just talk about yourself over and over a lot. Let's give you an example. Here is a conversation between one person and a second person. Please listen. And then I got promoted and everyone was so impressed with me. Oh, and let me tell you about the award I won last month. Oh, also, when I went out with my friends, I also got a free dinner that night. You know what? I also won a free dinner at another restaurant the same night. Wow, that's just great. Okay, so the person that responded, wow, that's just great, they're not really interested in the conversation because they feel they have nothing to say because the conversation is all about the other person. So you don't want to do this when you have a conversation with someone. Okay, so now let's move on to number 7. Negative gossip. Here's an example. Did you hear what happened to Sarah? She totally bombed that presentation. That must have been so embarrassing, right? I don't think we should be talking about this. Okay, so negative gossip like this, it does kill a conversation because what if the person is a friend with Sarah? Usually you don't know the connection. You don't know how close of a friendship or what kind of friendship the person may have. So it just sounds mean. This is definitely a thing you want to avoid. So don't do this. Stay away from using negative gossip. You know, I would say try to stay away from gossip, period. Just try to stay away from gossip in your conversations. Okay, so now let's get to number 8. Talking about controversial or taboo subjects. We do not want to do this in conversation. These are conversation killers. Here is an example. You know, I think the moon landing was fake. There's no way they actually went there in the 60s. Okay. I don't think that's true. So, in this situation, in this example, we're talking about something controversial. Sending a spacecraft to the moon. So, some people think in America, maybe in other countries, but some people think it was not realistic or real and didn't happen. So don't have a conversation like this. It is very strange and a conversation killer. Number 9. Let's move to number 9. This is advice that you give the person didn't ask you for. Okay? This is called unsolicited advice. Unsolicited advice. So, here is an example for you. I've been feeling really tired lately. You need to start taking vitamins and exercising every morning. You're probably not eating right either. Thanks, but I didn't ask for advice. So sometimes you may think you are being helpful. Sometimes you are being helpful, but in conversations, you must really know the person and their life for this to work. So be careful when giving advice in conversations. They could be conversation killers. Okay, now let's move on to number 9. Actually, this is number 9. Number 10. Number 10 is excessive small talk. Too much small talk. Okay? Small talk is just talking about some subjects with no meaning really for the conversation, just to keep talking. Those can just end the conversation and ruin it. So here's an example. Looks like it's going to rain tomorrow. Yeah, it might. And did you see the clouds today? Really gray. Yeah. I heard that it might even snow. Oh, okay. Yeah, very cold wind chill weather. So maybe it will. Yeah, okay. Now, as you can see, this is a conversation that really didn't go anywhere. Now, for those of my listeners that know, I have lived in Japan for 5 years, and this is one of the number one mistakes Japanese people learning English do is they talk about the weather, and it's not a subject that is that should be discussed really, because it's just small talk and no one really cares. Now, I promised to give you a bonus. Okay? So, I'm going to give you bonus number 11. Okay? Talking about old arguments or old fights. Okay? This is a conversation killer that would probably only happen if you had a native English speaking friend, and you might have this happen. So be careful. Here is an example. Remember when you borrowed my car last month and didn't fill up the gas tank? We've already talked about this. Can we move on? Okay, so this is, if you've already talked about it with the person, why talk about it again? It is definitely a way to kill the conversation, and you don't want to do that.
このショーを気に入っていただけたら5つ星のレビューをぜひお願いします。
Okay, everyone, there you have it. That is part 2 of the top 10 plus one bonus ways to kill a conversation that you don't want to do. If you didn't catch the last episode, please go listen to that. Here are the top 10 plus one again. Overly personal, too sensitive topics. Number 2, too much complaining in the conversation about something. Number 3, too technical English or too difficult, hard to understand English in the conversation. Number 4, politics, talking about politics in the conversation. Number 5, religion, talking about religion or religious things, religious related stories in conversation. Number 6, talking just about yourself over and over. Don't do this. Number 7, negative gossip or just gossip in general. Gossip is something you should stay away from. Number 8, talking about controversial or taboo subjects that are very difficult to talk about. Something that is a little bit hard to talk about or sensitive, or just be careful. You don't want to say these things with your mother or your father, so don't say these things with a general person in a regular conversation. Maybe a close friend, but not just a regular conversation, so don't say that. Number 9, giving advice when someone did not ask you for advice. Be careful of that. Number 10 is too much small talk, talking about things just to keep the conversation going, like talking about the weather, Don't do this. And a bonus number 11 is talking about some bad thing that happened a long time ago or before with a person. So you don't want to talk about these old fights or old arguments or just something bad that happened before in the past. Past tense. Leave it in the past. Okay, that's my advice. So that's it. Those are that's my advice for you. So don't use these things. Don't use these type of topics in your conversation with people. Be careful, and because you want to have a pleasant conversation with people, okay? Because you never know, you might want to have the conversation go into a friendship, go into a business partnership, or go into a romantic thing or something. So you just want to make sure that you don't, mess these conversations up. Okay, so that's it for today's podcast. Please remember to help me out here. Leave a review. Also, you can donate to the podcast. There is a link there. You can donate to the show to help me continue making great content like this to help you learn English better. Just think of it dropping what you can, $5 or so, $3 here and there, as buying me a coffee to thank me for making this show for you. Well, with that being said, peace, and I'll see you in the next episode where I look at some user mistakes in English, and we try to come up with ways to fix it together. All right, that's it. See you next time. Peace and love.
今日は楽しい時間をありがとうございました。ぜひ私たちのウェブサイトrealsocialenglish.com を訪問して日本語訳と役立つ情報を手に入れてください。また次回お会いしましょう。バイバイ。See you next time. Bye bye.